Okay, welcome. We're going to run through a configuration of a Cisco ASA firewall to get you basic functionality in there. I'm starting here with 5520. Of course, if you can start with 5505 or 06, whatever you have. If you have the 05 or 06 lower end models, they do have DHCP servers on them running at the beginning, so you're going to want to disable those. So I'm going to assume I'm on a console cable here. I'm going to do an enable. There's no password. I'm going to do a show run to show you the basic configuration. Everything is pretty much dead. Your configuration might look a little bit different than mine does, but it should work out pretty well. So what we're going to do is, when I do show run, you'll notice I have interfaces here. Now, if you're on the smaller 5505, they had a switch. So these would be E ports, and you'd want to make sure the ones you're using are no-shutted. And then the VLAN interface 1 is your inside, VLAN interface 2 is your outside. You'd give the inside an IP address. We're going to use the 01 here as our inside interface. So first thing we're going to do is go into config T mode. I'm going to say no to staying with that. And I'm going to go to int gig01. I'm going to do a name if command. It makes this the inside, which actually sets its security level as well for me. I'm going to do an IP address, 192.168. Let's just put in something 233. You just put in whatever address you're using. I'll put a no shut. And I could do a description. I'll do inside LAN, whatever you want it to do. If I do show run now, you can see the configuration is there and the interface is knocked down. Again, if you have that 5505, it's got a switch on it. Make sure the switch port, in addition to the VLAN interface, are not shut down. They've discontinued the use of that. So some other things we're going to do. We're going to do a host name, my Cisco ASA, and a domain name, class.local. And the reason I do those is they're required for your RSA key generation, which we're going to do now. Crypto key generate. RSA modulus 2048, and it'll just, if it has one, it'll say, do you want to replace those, and we'll say yes. Then, because we have an interface, I'm going to do SSH00 inside and HTTP server enable and HTTP 00 inside. 00 is an abbreviation for this, which is a wildcard for any. The in is abbreviation for inside, which is the name of the interface. So this basically says I'm allowing SSH on the inside, and I'm allowing HTTP to run. That's the server command. And I'm allowing it from the inside. Again, you can abbreviate 00 as you like. So what I'm going to do now is, let me go ahead and write that. At this point, you should wire the inside interface into your network, and I should be able to ping something on my inside network. So I'm going to ping inside 192.168.250.5, I think I should be able to ping, and I can ping it. So that's a good sign, which means I should be able to open a browser, and I'm going to use Firefox here. I'll make this a size to fit in our screen, and I'm going to go to our address, 233 HTTPS. I'll get a warning because we're using a self-signed certificate. And you can see I can access stuff. So if you can't see 3 buttons, there's 2 things you need to do, especially if you're in Windows. You would go up under your options and put this in compatibility mode. More likely, if you're in a Windows or a Mac, you go into your Java control panel. And we're going to do this here anyway. And you go to the security tab and you edit the site list and you add it. And you put in to allow Java to run. And now when I run this, it will launch with the latest version of Java. Keep in mind, if you have more than one, this is just my little mini firewall under my environment. If you have more than one ASDM on the device, you're going to have to use the ASDM command to specify which one it is. I'll show you later. There's no username and password right now since we're getting a basic setup, so I will basically just load it. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit, but I will keep it kind of a larger size. So to go through the rest of the config, on the first page, the home page, we're going to enable logging first of all. We want to see some of the logging going on. We're going to go to the configuration tab and mainly walk you through basics. I don't use the startup wizard myself. So I'm going to go through two sections here to get going, which is device setup and device management, and then firewall. And then we'll be pretty much with a basic setup. So the interface settings, what I'm doing going here is I'm making sure I have an inside setup. With my outside setup, I would call this outside. I'd make the security level 0, enable the interface, and put my public address on it. I'm going to just put a fake address for today. You put a description in there, and that's pretty much it. So I got my inside and outside. Of course, you could do DMZs. You could also do an out-of-band management if you wanted to. Let's say I had an out-of-band management. I'd call this management or something like that. I'd say dedicate this to management, enable the interface, and put an IP address of whatever my subnet is for my out-of-band management. Now I'm not going to save this one. I'll save it. But you can set up a management-only interface, which will not route traffic. Now, in a perfect world, if you do this, this should really be another context of another firewall. So 2 virtual firewalls in the same one, which I'm not going to cover in this quick lesson, but otherwise this network will not be able to be routed between these 2 networks. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. These are the main 2 we're going to deal with. Okay. Typically, I'd recommend that you don't enable these, or if you do, you only enable that one. One of the things I've done here with my ASDM, if I go to Preferences, is I've clicked this box to preview commands so that I can see the commands as I issue them. So the interfaces look good. We're not doing a zone-based firewall. The routing, we really need to add our default route. So I'm going to add in a route on the outside of any. That means a route to anywhere, and the gateway of 1.1.1.2, whatever your public IP address is. Now, we leave this option as none. For now. Tracked is if you want to have multiple default gateway routes out, and you have multiple links, and you want to have it ping out one while it tests to see if that's up. When it goes down, fail to the other. Tunneled means this route that I'm entering is specifically for VPN clients, which it's not. So that's how you enter your default gateway. And I'll apply it, and you can see the command from the preview, and I'll send it. For the most part of this stuff, I'm not touching any of this stuff. We'll go to device. We already set some of this stuff, the system time. So the clock, we'll want to make sure it's on the right time zone. If you're using Universal Standard, UTC, then just leave it on 0, but we're going to be setting it to Eastern, which is there. And I will set it to 1603, which is correct, and I'll hit apply. Now on the NTP side, you really want to put some NTP sources in. I don't have any today, so I'm going to go over and show you how to pull a couple real easy. So typically in the US, you should be using a UTP called us.pool.ntp.org if you don't have one in your own site. So what you'll do is you'll do ns lookup and then that name, and it'll give you a whole bunch back. We can just copy some of these and use them. You could just do pool.ntp.org. But it may give you some. You should pull the same ones, but it may give you some. So I usually do the US one. So I'll just put this in. I'll select it on the outside interface, and I'll add it. I'll put another one in. And I'm just going to add 2 here for now. Again, on the outside. If you have your own internal one, obviously, that's the way to go. And that completes this section in its entirety. We're going to go down to device management next. Management access. We've already added this, tells it where you can run your ASDM and your SSH from. Again, you can limit that if you want. SSH versions, I'd recommend going to 2 and Diffie-Hellman 4. And I'll apply those. I'm sorry, Diffie-Hellman 14. And then we go down to banners. You can put a banner in there. Warning, authorized. Whatever you want to put in there. The ICMP access, if this is really to the interface of the ASA, not anything else, so I'm going to add a rule. And for just troubleshooting today, I'm going to add an any inside, and any outside, which typically wouldn't add the outside one for the box. Actually, for good practice, let's not add the outside one. I'll show you what to do later. Management interface should be set to, if you come through a VPN, which interface do you want to be able to manage the box on. I'm just going to set it to inside for today since I don't really have my real management set up. SNMP, if you had any SNMP stuff set up like a monitoring system inside, you could add a host here and give it the community string and stuff like that. If you're using version 3, it's down here. So that's it under this section. Licensing, of course, you would want to enter your licensing here if you have any licensing changes. Under system image, I'm going to go to boot, and we're going to add, and I'm going to browse the flash. And I don't know where that went. There it is. Now, I have 2 disks in this box, and this box is a virtual one, which is a little bit special. So we're not going to be able to push it or select it, but what you'll do is you'll see your ASDM and your bin file here. Because I'm training on a virtual one, I don't have it. It's handled differently. So what you do is you would select the bin file for the ASA operating system that you want to run, and you would OK it, and it would go into this list. And if you had more than one, you could add it. But the whole idea of specifying the list here and also doing the same exact thing for this, the SDM path, browsing the flash, pointing it to the ASDM file, is, and in this case, if I go to home, I'm running 9.4.1.200 and 7.4.1 ASDM. The reason we do that is because if you don't, and there's 2 ASAs, operating systems here, it'll pick the first one it hits in the directory listing. And if it picks the wrong one and it's an older version, something's not going to work. Same thing with the ASDM. So because I don't have more than one version and it's a virtual one I'm training on, I'm not going to set this, but typically I do on real hardware. This is where you set up failovers and stuff like that. We're not going to do that here. Under logging, we've enabled it in that first screen. So I'm going to go down to logging filters and make sure my ASDM is informational. If I have set up syslog, I may want to up that one as well. So that is good for logging for us. Users, so what I'm going to do is go into the user access. I'm sorry, user accounts, and I'm going to add a new user. This one I'm going to call admin. I'm going to make my password just Cisco for today. Make them 15. And hit OK and apply. And then this is the enable password. So I'm going to set these two. I'm going to do them through a command line by doing them this way. Tools, command line, enable password Cisco. And then the second command for telnet is passwd, enter password Cisco. So it's already asking for another password here because I just changed it. So both commands went to the environment. I'll refresh it. I'll save it. Now I've got the password set and the user account, but it's not using it yet. So we're going to tell I want to use a username for privilege mode, ASDM, SSH, and telnet, but not serial, so that the console, if my user account fails, I can always get in. So when I go to save this now, it's going to have me log in as admin with that password because I'm in the ASDM in this way, and it's now told it to use the local database of users. So I hit save, and it's going to prompt me right here. Hey, you got to put in your username. You don't got to be allowed to do that. So I do, and I'm allowed. And now I've saved it. So AAA is now set up. Certificate management, we basically just generate a self-signed certificate. I'll add a certificate. We list them, give them a name by what's called a trust point name. I'll add a new certificate. I will. There's a key pair. I don't see my existing key pair, so I'm going to set up a new one. And you just set it to general purpose new key pair RSA 2048 and generate it now. It says the key pair already exists, so why do I not have one to choose from? I don't know, but we're going to just generate a new one. So I'll use RSA 2048. Set it. It'll generate a key pair. There it is. Maybe I didn't save it. Now, that key pair is now there, but this is your certificate. So what you're supposed to do is generate a self-signed certificate by setting these attributes. Common name would be the name of this ASA, and I can't remember what the heck I named it. Hold on a second. My Cisco ASA right here. So common name this.class.local. It should be the real DNS name. Department, IT security. These ones don't matter. Company, Acme Core, Acme Box. Country, US, two digits. State, you can type it out, but I'm not going to because I'm lazy. Location, Philadelphia. And email address if you want to put it in there, and I hit OK, and this will generate the correct format. I hit self-signed, I add the certificate, it sends it all, and boom, I've got a new certificate in here now. I will just hit apply so there's no changes, and then I'll hit save to make sure that it gets committed. So I'll show you where we're going to make sure this gets assigned different places, but this is a certificate that now exists inside the ASA. To be used for things like the ASDM and the ASA remote access web VPN and stuff like that. Other things, if you need it to serve DHCP, you can turn that on. I'm not doing that. DNS, I want this particular firewall to have a DNS server, so you may want to set up DNS servers, for example, 4.2.2.2 and 8.8.8.8. Typically, this would be something inside your network. But I don't, actually I do have something inside my network. Let's do it the proper way here. 19.168.250. Excuse me, 1 second, pause you and find out what it should be. So it's 22 and 17. And I won't put it on the outside, I'll put it on the inside. That's where they are. And enable DNS guard. Now what that does is it only lets the first response back through. So we'll turn that on. So that sets up DNS. Under advanced here, let me see, SSL settings. We basically want to edit some of this and tell each one of these what certificate to use for their little environments here. So I'm going to pick the only one we have. Of course, if you have a real certificate you buy from the internet, well, then that's what you apply there. Now, in a secure world, we really would want to bump this up to 1.2 on both of these and require something a higher use from the perspective of this environment. Because 1.1 and 1.0 are not considered secure anymore. So in the world of this firewall, the basic functional device is set up now. If I no-shut, I have to no-shut the outside interface. I think I did that already. These two interfaces, and I should be able to ping out. So, last couple things to do on the firewall. Okay, I'm going to give you very basic rules. On the inside, I'm going to right-click here, add an access rule, and just permit any. For a small company, that's fine. For bigger companies, you're going to be a little more controlled. On the outside, I'm going to insert, and I'm going to make an access rule that permits echo reply, comma, echo request only, just those. And underneath that, I'm going to insert a deny rule. So we can see, let me close these windows. Oops. So you can see that we will allow the pings but deny everything else. So that basically allows pings in and out. And one other one that you might want to add to that is unreachables, used for VPNs navigating inside and out. And then we're allowing everything on the inside out. NAT rules, what we'll have to do is we're going to basically manage the NAT through an object. So what I'm going to do is down to objects, look at my objects, I'm just going to take the inside network or in any object like this. We'll take the inside network where I'll add an object. I'll call this inside networks, and I'll make this all zeros. So it's anything. Now you could just NAT the inside subnet, and that's it. Then I'm going to call this inside nets. Then you can add NAT, put it to dynamic pat, add the outside interface as the IP it's going to use, and I think that we could actually leave it to any. That's fine. That'll work for just about anything. I'll hit OK and apply that. That basically, if I go back to NAT, you'll see that adds a NAT object rule. It says anything on the inside networks, which is anything, coming out any interface to the outside interface should get NATed. Service policy rules here. Typically I go into here, go to rule actions, take this one off because it doesn't work well, leave the rest on, and apply that. And that takes care of the service policy access rules. Most of this stuff you don't need to turn on, but I do come here and turn this threat detection on and say give me all statistics so I can see threat detection type stuff. And for the most part, that's about it. I save the configuration, and your firewall is complete with a basic functional way of getting a firewall up and running. And then you can go ahead and test it. I hope that makes sense to you. Thanks for watching. Enjoy.